Hello learners, this lecture pertains to the Unit 6 of the course MGPE 14 and today we'll be discussing Gandhi and human ecology. I'm Dr. Shubhangi Vaidya from the School of Interdisciplinary and Transdisciplinary Studies at IGNOU. We will try and understand the basic concepts of human ecology, and we will also try and understand and contextualize Gandhi's thoughts in the light of human ecology. Let's begin by trying to understand what human ecology is. So, human ecology is the study of the interactions between humans and nature in different cultures. It combines the ideas and methods from several disciplines, including anthropology, sociology, biology, economic history, and so on. Thus, it is an interdisciplinary area of study par excellence. Human ecology studies human life and human activity in different ecosystems and different cultures in the present as well as in the past, to gain a better understanding of the factors which influence the interaction between humans and their environment. The history of human ecology has strong roots in the geography and sociology departments of the late 19th century universities in the West. And a major landmark that stimulated research into the ecological relations between humans and their urban environments was the work of George Perkins Marsh. His famous book, Man and Nature, which was published in 1864, is a landmark one in which Marsh tried to understand the active agency of human and nature interactions. One of the very important points that he made was that whereas people think that the earth has made man or human beings, it is in fact human beings that have made the earth. By this we mean that the way human beings have exerted their agency on the earth and shaped nature is a very, very important point to bear in mind. In 1894, University of Chicago sociologists Albion W. Small and George E. Vincent published a guidebook that trained students of sociology on how they could study society by specifically including the relationship of the social world to the material environment. However, the term human ecology is really associated with the Chicago University sociologist Robert E. Park, who coined it in 1921. And by this, it meant the study of the relationship between humans and their natural, social, and built environments. Robert Park and his colleague Ernest Burgess developed a program of urban research in the sociology department at Chicago University, and their theory of urban ecology in their book, Introduction to the Science of Sociology, published in 1922. Let's talk more about Park's understanding of human ecology. According to Robert E. Park, human ecology differs in important respects from plant and animal ecology. The interrelations of human beings and the interactions of man and his habitat are comparable but not identical with interrelations of other forms of life that live together and carry on a kind of biological economy within the limits of a common habitat. Park says that man is not so immediately dependent upon his physical environment as are other animals. As a result of the existing worldwide division of labor, man's relation to his physical environment has been mediated through the intervention of other men. The exchange of goods and services have cooperated to emancipate him from dependence upon his local habitat. Furthermore, man has, by means of inventions and technical devices of the most diverse sorts, enormously increased his capacity for reacting upon and remaking not only his habitat but his world. Finally, man has erected upon the basis of the biotic community an institutional structure rooted in custom and tradition. These extracts, which I have read from Park's article Human Ecology in the American Journal of Sociology, published in 1936, very well encapsulate the meaning of human ecology and the way in which it seeks to understand how human beings interact with nature and build a system in interaction with each other, which in a way takes into account the natural limitations as well as the cultural integration that human beings are capable of. To take this point further, let's look at the concept of competition in human ecology. Robert Park discussed the concept of competition and believed that it is the primary feature at the biotic level of life. In other words, the plant and animal kingdom is characterized by competition for life. However, human beings restrict competition. Human restriction of competition, therefore, is what permits society to exist in the form that we know. Competition between human beings never takes the form of a blind struggle for life and survival. Rather, it manifests itself as a more or less regulated and controlled struggle for a living and for status. So human beings will struggle for livelihoods, they will struggle to improve their positions in society. However, the blind struggle for life that we see in the animal kingdom is different in human society. Whereas in the plant and the animal world, the mechanisms of collective behavior, such as there are built into the very structure of the organisms and can truly be described in terms of reflexes and instincts. The behavior of the human world can be understood only in the light of habits, customs, institutions, morals, ethics, and laws. So in simple terms, human beings do not live by their instincts alone, do not live by survival alone. Human beings are cultural beings. Human beings are social beings. Human ecology has a history of focusing attention on humans' impact on the biotic world, or in other words, the world of nature. And another very, very important intervention or a very important contribution to the area of human ecology was by Paul Sears. He published a detailed account of human ecology as a discipline in 1954. And Sears addressed topics such as the population explosion, global resource limits, pollution, and the huge extent of problems that humans were creating for the environment. So in a sense, placing human ecology as an interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary area of inquiry was very, very well addressed by Paul Sears, because it is evident that human ecology cannot be confined or cannot be restricted to a single disciplinary perspective. In the inaugural issue of the journal Human Ecology, an interdisciplinary journal published in 1972, the editors gave a broad overview on the interdisciplinary nature of the area. What was some of the subject matter of human ecology that they identified? Well, genetic, physiological, and social adaptation to the environment and to environmental change, the role of social, cultural, and psychological factors in the maintenance or disruption of ecosystems, the effects of population density on health, social organization, or environmental quality, new adaptive problems in urban environments, the interrelations of technological and environmental changes, the development of unifying principles in the study of biological and cultural adaptations, and the genesis of maladaptations in human biological and cultural evolution. The relation of food quality and quantity to physical and intellectual performance and to demographic change, the application of computers, remote sensing devices, and other new tools and techniques. if you look at this wide range of areas or this wide range of topics that can be included in the ambit of human ecology, you see very, very clearly that human ecology addresses the way in which human beings live within nature, how they adapt to nature, how they change nature, and how human culture and society are so closely related with the environment or the ecological system within which they are embedded. If we look at some of the contemporary problems today that is being faced by our country and by the world as such, we see how many of these adaptations or how many of these interactions have in a sense become toxic or maladaptive. We see thus that the field of human ecology is both interdisciplinary as well as transdisciplinary, in the sense that it raises issues and concerns that go beyond the conventional disciplines. Let us now talk about Gandhi as a human ecologist. There has been a lot of discussion and debate on whether Gandhi can be conceived of or Gandhi can be categorized as a human ecologist. And I would just like to quote John S. Mulekattu, who writes, and I quote, "The strength of human ecology lies in its ability to see human beings and their environment as mutually interlinked, as part of an integrated whole. This suggests that the Western tendency to compartmentalize everything into different categories is anti-ecological. Different facets of human life reflected in politics, economics, sociology, culture, etc., need to be seen in an integrated way. Social sciences should focus on finding answers to problems not from the vantage point of individual disciplines, but focus on the problems at hand and allow integrative scholarship to emerge. This is precisely what Gandhi did. So, when we speak of Gandhi as a human ecologist, it becomes very, very clear that Gandhi in fact had an integrative approach towards human problems, in which he considered the interplay of human beings with their natural world as well as within society itself. And his focus was to find plausible and sustainable solutions which would be useful to human beings and at the same time not harm the ecology or the ecosystem. To quote Kumarappa, in the traditional archives of knowledge, religion, sociology, and economy have all been reserved their separate and exclusive spheres. Man has been divided into various watertight compartments. The left hand is not to know what the right hand does. Nature does not recognize such divisions. She deals with all life as a whole. Gandhi perfectly understood this and had an integrative and holistic approach towards nature, human society, and finding solutions to human problems. Gandhi saw all spheres of human life, social, economic, political, and spiritual, in an integrated manner, which we have emphasized earlier also. And this exemplifies the human ecological perspective. And therefore, Gandhi is acknowledged all over the world as an ecologist and the inspiration for many environmental movements and environmental philosophies, as we have also discussed in the earlier lectures. He was also deeply influenced by Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and their respect and reverence for the diversity of life on earth. This is also a very, very important aspect of Gandhi's persona and Gandhi's philosophy. Continuing our discussion of Gandhi as a human ecologist, we see that he was of the very firm belief that every developmental effort must be addressed to the last person first. The basis of the concept of Antyodaya, which we have discussed earlier, or the concept of unto the last. He held that the two conditions were essential to sustain a morally and materially sound attack on poverty, inequality, and unemployment. Firstly, austerity or consumption ethics. Gandhi said, and I quote, "He who has made the ideal of equal distribution a part of his being would reduce his wants to a minimum, bearing in mind the poverty of India." Second, a discerning and deliberate choice of technology. As we have discussed in earlier lectures also, Gandhi was of the opinion that capital-intensive technology was not appropriate for a country like India. He said, "If I could produce all my country's wants by means of 30,000 people instead of 30 million, I should not mind it, provided that the 30 million are not rendered idle and unemployed." So therefore, for him, employment of everybody was something that was essential in order to provide them with a dignified life. In order to translate these ideas on the ground, Gandhi proposed the institution of village republics in the political realm and the pursuit of village self-sufficiency as the basis of economic development. Let's talk now about a very, very important document, a very, very important publication by the Club of Rome, published in 1972, which was titled Limits to Growth. This is one of the very, very important documents, or one of the very, very important writings in the 1970s, which really alerted the world to the environmental disaster that seemed to be awaiting us. I quote from this document, "We are convinced that the realization of the quantitative restraints of the world environment and of the tragic consequences of an overshoot is essential to the initiation of new forms of thinking that will lead to fundamental revision of human behavior and, by implication, of the entire fabric of the present-day society. We affirm, finally, that any deliberate attempt to reach a rational and enduring stage of equilibrium by planned measures, rather than by chance or catastrophe, must ultimately be founded on a basic change of values and goals at individual, national, and world levels." Limits to Growth, in a sense, sensitized or brought the attention of the world to the fact that ecological, environmental resources are finite, that we cannot keep growing in an uncontrolled and untrammeled manner because the earth simply will not sustain it. And if we see the injunction to ultimately change our values and goals at individual, national, and world levels, it is in this context that we see the relevance and significance of Gandhian thinking on ecological issues. Another very, very important and well-cited text is that of Alvin Toffler, who wrote of future shock. And I quote from here, "Our technological powers increase, but the side effects and potential hazards also escalate. We risk thermopollution of the oceans themselves, overheating them, destroying immeasurable quantities of marine life, perhaps even melting the polar ice caps. On land, we concentrate such large masses of population in such small urban technological islands that we threaten to use up the air's oxygen faster than it can be replaced, conjuring up the possibility of new Saharas where the cities are now." How truly does this ring, particularly in the context of urban India and the pollution that is experienced every year and the kinds of terrible air quality issues that we face on an ongoing basis. The important point here to note is that technology, absolutely untrammeled or unchecked growth of technology without a vision of sustaining or taking care of the earth and the ecology, is something that can only lead to disaster and ruination of the species as such. Let's once again look at Gandhian perspectives, which we have examined and discussed in the earlier lectures, but they bear repetition. Gandhi pointed out that no single factor has contributed to the phenomenon of worldwide erosion of natural resources than the greed to get rich quickly with the help of new and powerful machines. Colonialism also, as we all know, gave rise to a heavy, ceaseless drain of food and raw materials from the countries affected by colonialism. And in these exploited countries like India, we find population increased, also technological developments like the building of roads and railways. You find a rapid expansion of trade and industry, urbanization, new cities coming up. Certain sections of the population, the privileged classes, saw an improvement in the standards of living. We find that forests are cleared, new areas, increasingly larger areas, are brought under cultivation to feed the growing population. At the same time, we find that along with these developments, there is progressive deterioration of natural resources, recurring environmental disasters such as floods and droughts and dust storms, famines and disease, poverty, and lowered stamina of the masses. Gandhi's basic fundamental point was that renunciation and limitation of wants, reducing our demands on the earth, is key to keeping our environment secure, is key to living a harmonious life on our planet. He said, "A time is coming when those who are in a mad rush today of multiplying their wants will retrace their steps and say, 'What have we done?'" These words really ring true in the present context. Limiting consumption by the careful use of our scarce natural energy, by not exhausting what are known as the renewable resources, by ensuring their recycling, and by checking our consumer lifestyles has become crucial. And in this way, the deleterious and depletive effect on our natural resources can be reduced, and our environment could be saved from degradation and pollution. To sum up what we have discussed so far, we see that Gandhi indeed was a human ecologist in the broadest sense. His teachings dealt with all aspects of human life, including nature and the environment, sustainable development, humans as members of the world community of species, as well as health, education, and the role of women as conservators of nature. Gandhi's concern for human welfare embraced everyone, including the poor and the impoverished. For every project or program, he recommended that humans recall the face of the poorest and weakest man you may have seen and ask yourself if the step you contemplate to take is going to be of any use to him. I think that this talisman of Gandhi, as we call it, is something that is very, very important and well worth remembering in all our undertakings and in all our activities. Thank you.